blended families are beautiful, but they come with their own set of challenges that require a lot of compromise, a lot of patience, and a lot of give and take. And it's been on my heart a lot lately as my kids have gotten older, and I've reflected back on a lot of things and a lot of challenges we faced, me and my husband, as we blended our family together. He had no children to start with, but I had two precious little ones who were 5 and 7 when we started dating. And it was a challenge. It was a challenge for him at first, and I could relate to that because my first marriage, he had a daughter who was 4 when we got married. So I understood the step parent role and how difficult it can be to find your place as a step parent, and where you should step in, or maybe you can't step in. It really all depends on the situation. And if you are a blended family, please share what your challenges are. I love to hear your stories, things you've gone through, and just the way you've dealt with certain things, because it is very, very challenging at times. So I understood, at least because I had gone through a little bit of that myself with my first marriage being blended, that I understood his angle to a degree. I think, honestly, and I'll probably do a different video on this, just about co-parenting in general in your own household. Co-parenting in itself can come with a lot of challenges, right? Me and my husband were raised very differently. We had to work on getting on the same page when we had our son together, and how we were going to discipline, and things that we felt very passionate about in regards to teaching him, and also, of course, tying in to my children, which now call him father as well, which was their, that's the relationship and bond they eventually built. But at the beginning, they just called him by his first name, and I never pushed that. I think it's very unhealthy to push on a child to refer to a step parent as mom and dad if they don't want to. Now, granted, if you're the other parent, the biological other parent, isn't involved, because I have friends that are single and the other parent just was not involved at all, and maybe the child was a baby when they entered the situation, they naturally call that step parent just father. It's just their father to them. There is no step to it. And that's kind of how we work in our family. I don't do the half sibling thing. That's your sibling, that's your sister, that's your brother, that's your dad. They know what the step parent means, but I don't know. I just feel families are families, and the family in your own 4 walls is the most important. And when it comes to blended families, there are just so many challenges, because on the step parent angle, right, at least for me in my first marriage, I felt like I had to walk on eggshells a lot, because I had her, the child's biological side, involved, right, in watching my every move, and there was a lot of animosity, and it was just very intense. And then again, my husband went through something similar with my ex-husband and his side, because I don't know, unfortunately, a lot of times when we get divorced, and that'll probably be a whole nother video I could go into about just healing from divorce in general, because it's very emotional and we tend to get wrapped up in our emotions. Even when there are children involved, sometimes we don't realize at the time that maybe we aren't really making the children the top priority, because there's usually a lot of hurt feelings if you got divorced, right? Something happened. Most people, even if they have the best of intentions of divorcing on good stances, right, it's not very typical. Okay, there's probably a small percentage of mature people that just parted ways and somehow made it work just instantly. Okay, I think you go through a season that you need to heal during divorce to come in a better spot with your ex. Uh, Obviously, when there's kids involved, it's a lot different if you have no children, of course, and you get divorced. Hopefully you can both heal, move on with your lives, and find happiness. And in the same case, obviously, when there is kids, I wish nothing but the best for everybody. But when there's children involved, sometimes our emotions kind of mess things up a bit. I won't say fortunately, but my children were very young when I got divorced from my first marriage. It was a very unhealthy 3-year marriage. We didn't know each other. We thought we did. We had been kind of acquaintances for many, many years prior. I had babysat his daughter off and on a few times, her first 4 years. And basically, to be blunt, since my audience is adults and moms, we were friends with benefits, and I got pregnant because things happen. That's the risk you take. And I was content with being a single mom. He wasn't the nicest to me during the pregnancy. It is what it is. I kind of had accepted that. And then some things happened, and we ended up getting married for the sake of his daughter, which I have no regrets on. I have no regrets in life. I have no resentments in life. I've worked over a decade in healing and realizing my part in things. So I have no regrets of being a part of her life, but I was definitely not aware of a lot that I'm now aware of, and it probably wasn't my place to, quote unquote, step in and try to save her from her biological mom. But that's a whole nother topic, and my point of this video is really just about the challenges we faced in our home now, with my husband playing the step-parent and me and us working together, co-parenting with my ex's side. And there's been very challenging times for us. And the biggest thing I think my husband has taught me, because we had very different childhoods, and he did have step-parents, and he did have half-siblings, for lack of a better word. And so he understands it more than I do. My parents stayed married my whole life. I have one sibling. So I don't have that experience. I don't know. And I think that's something, when you're married and there are children involved and it is a blended family, like, talk about each other's history, because that spouse could probably give you, if your childhoods were different or they came from a situation of blended family, it'll probably help you if you have it, because it helped me tremendously. Because if you haven't gone through the experience, you really just don't have knowledge about it, right? So I learned so much from him on a lot of things, and he really didn't, and still doesn't. And our oldest two are teenagers now. They're 15 and 17 now. So, but he's never really interfered with the co-parenting of me and my ex. He has let us work out issues that involved our teens between us, okay? There's only like a couple times that things got a little out of control and ridiculous where he stepped in defense of me, like a good husband. So that is a big thing, I would say, especially if you're just starting out as a blended family, is it's going to take a lot of patience. You're going to have to let your children bond. Don't force it. It makes it worse. Children are very, very smart. They can read it. You maybe get away with it while they're little, but trust me, they'll figure out if you're pushing something. And let's face it, we all rebelled when we felt our parents were forcing us to do things. Let me know if you can relate to that. I certainly can. That could be a whole other video of just rebelling against your parents, obviously. But yeah, sometimes it's hard. It's hard. Like I said, emotions run high sometimes. It's hard as a step parent to let the biological parents work out things, obviously, but it's probably the best case, because I don't know about your state or where you live, but in our state, step parents have absolutely no rights in the eyes of the court. And unfortunately, I went through court battles with my ex, so I know very well. I went through them in regards to his first wife with my bonus daughter during that marriage, and then I went through them again in the last 10 years with him. So like the courts just, they don't give any weight to a step parent. It is between the biological parents. Like I said, that might be different in other states, because I also know in our state they don't really recognize grandparent rights, and I do know in other states they do. So obviously you'd have to check with your state. But on the healthy level of relationships, I think it's important to remain civil as the step parent, to try to be the peacekeeper, if you will. Once again, I know that can be very challenging at times, okay? I really do understand it. But I think that's very important. And it takes a lot of give and take. It really, honestly, is a lot of give and take when you're blending a family together and trying to get on the same side. Another challenge we went through, once our son got old enough, and obviously it was always a part of his life, but when he started asking questions and stuff, he wanted to know where his brother and sister were going, and, you know, like, oh, that's their dad, and this is our dad, and, you know, you kind of have to have that talk too, on whatever age appropriate level that child may be on at the time. Like I said, it's always been a part of his life because we were a blended family. He's the child me and my husband share together, so his entire life, his brother and sister have, not that my ex is highly involved and ever has been, but he started getting used to them going on visits or splitting holidays. That's another thing that can bring a lot of emotions. I will give my ex that much. We never really had any issues in regards to holidays, and that might be because there was a court order with his first wife and him, so we had kind of already understood the concept that, you know, regardless of how we personally felt about each other, that our children had the right to spend equal time on holidays. So once again, you have to really check your emotions during divorce, during blending a family together, co-parenting in general. You really have to get your emotions in check, because the kids have to be the priority, and they pick up on the animosity. They do, trust me. I've had kids that I've been involved in their whole lives. I've seen parents use kids as pawns. I've watched the damage it does to these children. And as they get older, they hold a lot of resentment, because they realize the adults that were unhealthy. They realize the adults that held on animosity and did things in spite and hurt whatever other family member, okay? So that's a family unit in general when it comes to grandparents, aunts and uncles, whoever. You really, I know, and I will preach it over and over again. Your emotions run very high certain times in certain situations. And sometimes we just aren't thinking clearly. That's why it's so important to heal from past drama and traumas. It's why it's so important to take time to become aware of things that aren't healthy, because a lot of people unintentionally do things and they don't even realize how unhealthy that behavior or that mindset or that thought process is, until they're willing to say, hey, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired on whatever it is going on in their life. And they really do. It's not just words. They start taking the actions. And then they become aware. There is so much from my past, which is why I started KO Mom Tools, is that I have wisdom, and it's not because I'm better than anybody. My wisdom comes because I did a lot of really stupid things. I put myself in a lot of stupid situations. I had a lot of unhealthy behaviors, you know, some from my childhood, sure, and I had really great parents. I had, like, quite literally a textbook childhood, white picket fence and all. It wasn't until my teenage years that some family things happened and it got chaotic, okay? So when I'm speaking from the heart, from experience and my own healing journey of 12 years now, and I mean, until you really accept and take accountability for whatever actions or behaviors you're doing, it's hard to become aware and really recognize. And then when you reflect back, you're like, oh my goodness, like, yeah, that really wasn't healthy, and I definitely wasn't in a good headspace. And as a parent, especially as a mom, the best thing we can do is heal ourselves and learn healthy coping skills for life and situations, because life's going to be hard. You're going to go through tough situations. The unexpected is definitely going to happen. So it's so important to start healing yourself so your kids know. You're their biggest influence. And your kids will learn from you and how to handle things in life. So I think that's it for today. I hope this helped somebody out there. I would love to connect with other blended families and just know, what are your challenges? Drop them in the comments. I will pin a comment about tools that I have available, digital tools and downloads that I've made, geared towards moms, of course. I have a lot of free things on there. Hope they help. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. I love you all. Take care.